Jen, do you remember when California was on fire?
Which time?
You know what? To be fair, Canada's always on fire.
Right, it's like on fire right now.
Is it still?
I think so. Maybe it's not anymore.
Well, we hope so. BC's
We hope so.
notoriously always on
Oh,
fire.
I thought you were saying we hope so. Like you hope it's still on fire.
We hope it's still on fire, yeah. I remember always watching those videos of like people in their cars and they're trying to either A, get to a wedding or B, escape the fire. It's always one of the two. I actually had a friend who was in BC and they were trying to get up to this lake and there was a fire happening at the same time and they're like, the highway's really busy. I'm going to take the back route. And they drove through the fire to get to the wedding. I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh my god, at that point I'd be like, nah.
No wedding ain't that worth it, you know?
That's crazy, actually.
People do be wildin'.
I've seen like those videos where they show how fast the fire moves and it's like so scary.
It is wild and it's so freaking hot. I wish AC would just turn off the fire, but it doesn't, you know? And I can't even imagine because I've never been in this situation before. It would be like melting your rubber on your tire and overheating your car, and your windows would be like crackling. I can't even imagine what the situation would be like. But this is going to be one of our first shorter term episodes, so let us know what you think down below. But welcome to the Decomposing Flowers podcast. We're excited to have you here with us as we delve into some truly intriguing and occasionally disturbing cases. I'm your host, Kira. With me is Jen. Everything we say in our podcast is information that we've gathered from testimonies, interviews, documents, and trustful sources. Any opinion we say is our own. If we get any information wrong or you want to add to the discussion, let us know in the comments. We mean no disrespect to the victims or anyone affected by this case. Today we're going to be discussing the Mont Blanc Tunnel fire. So before we get started, if you're not comfortable with fire or hearing about a massive loss of life, maybe check out another one of our episodes. Make sure to take care of yourself, and we'll see you in the next episode. Mont Blanc Tunnel was this almost 12-kilometer, or if you're from like the States, 7-mile passage that was carved into the Alps. It was literally this tunnel that ran from France to Italy. And for decades, it was a huge point of trade and tourism. It was a part of daily life for countless travelers and transporters. But on this morning of March 24th, 1999, the routines would be shattered and countless lives would be lost, transporting this gateway into a scene of unimaginable horror. At approximately 10:45, Gilbert Dilgrave, a Belgian truck driver, steered his vehicle that was full of flour and margarine through the French side toll booth. He was just going to get to the other side. Everything was all routine. But this innocent cargo would later be a massive accelerant, contributing to the fire's intensity and power. Around 10:49, the first signs of trouble emerged. Delgrave noticed cars approaching from the opposite direction, flashing their headlights at him. He glanced in his mirrors, seeing some white smoke billowing from beneath his cabin. He didn't immediately think this was a dire emergency. Over the whole 35 years this tunnel had existed, and all of them had been successfully extinguished upon the drivers spotting it. This led him to feel more comfortable, and that this minor fire that was happening could have easily been contained. But the situation escalated with terrifying speed. At 10:59, approximately 6 kilometers or 3 miles into the tunnel, Gilbert stopped his truck and attempted to fight the fire. However, his efforts were thwarted by the payload, primarily the margarine, as it violently combusted. Overwhelmed, Gilbert was forced to abandon his vehicle and flee towards the Italian entrance side of the tunnel. But this moment, this very second, marked a critical transition from a manageable incident into an uncontrolled disaster. The trap quickly sprung shut. At 10:59, a driver from Refuge 22 managed to raise alarm. Within a minute, at 10:55, tunnel employees triggered the fire alarm, and halted any further traffic from entering. However, at this crucial point, at least 10 cars and 18 trucks had already entered from the French side, becoming trapped within this confined space. A few vehicles from the Italian side managed to pass the burning truck without stopping, but for those on the French side, escape became impossible. Some cars attempted to turn around in the narrow 2-lane tunnel, but the smoke was so quickly filling up the tunnel that they couldn't see. Larger trucks were completely stranded, and they couldn't back up, they couldn't reverse, they couldn't maneuver. This thing was tight. It's in the middle of a mountain. The smoke advanced quickly and relentlessly. And in Canada, we have this thing called Smoky Prevents Forest Fires. So we all know that if there's a fire, we gotta stop, we gotta drop, and we gotta get low. Because it's not necessarily the fire that kills you most of the time, it's the smoke. It suffocates you to death. And this smoke had already enveloped half a kilometer of the French side of the tunnel. And this was just moments after the violent combustion, like just in between the span of 10:50 and 11. But by 11:30, a mere 37 minutes after the fire began, a toxic flume had reached the French entrance, a full 6 kilometers, or almost 4 miles, from the burning truck. This spread of smoke was the primary loss of life in the tragedy. The tunnel's ventilation system, which had been designed for safety, became a fatal flaw. Instead of curing the air, it inadvertently drove the smoke, which was laden with carbon dioxide and hydrogen cyanide, which is not good, back down into the tunnel, which was moving faster than anyone could possibly run to safety. These fumes quickly depleted oxygen and rendered vehicles inoperable, so they couldn't even drive if they wanted to, including the fire engines which were dispatched to the scene. Many firefighters were forced to abandon their trucks, and they were overcome by the conditions. Many drivers who attempted to escape their car and seek refuge were incapacitated by the smoke. The fire raged for an astonishing 53 hours, reaching an estimated temperature of 1,000 Celsius, or 1,830 degrees Fahrenheit. This was largely fueled by the margarine, which was equivalent to a 23,000 liter, or if you're from the States, that's 61 US gallons of oil. To compound this already tragic disaster, the weather conditions caused the airflow from the Italian side to the French side to not really flow. Attempted to clear the air, pumping in fresh air from the Italian side, which created this thing called a chimney effect. And this essentially does exactly what they didn't want it to do, because it intensified the fire, which further trapped the fumes, which were killing people, especially on the French side. I don't know if you've ever watched a lot of fire videos. If there's ever a fire inside, you're not to like crack the glass. If you do, there's going to be a combustion because fire wants oxygen. It lives off of oxygen to survive. But the battle was not going well. Despite the emergency response being immediate, it was futile. There was overwhelming odds. The fire trucks from the French side were dispatched between 10:58 and 10:59, with Italian firefighters arriving around the same time as well. The conditions within the tunnel, like we said, was overwhelming. There was melted wire, which plunged the tunnel into darkness, already combined with the dense smoke. There was abandoned vehicles that completely blocked the path, and they couldn't get the fire engines in. The French trucks were halted about 3,900 feet from the burning truck, which is also 200 meters, forcing firefighters to abandon their vehicles and seeking refuge in their emergency fire cubicles. The fire was an immediate and dynamic threat. The burning fuel that flowed across the road's surface triggered explosions of tires and fuel tanks, which sent deadly shrapnel flying and spreading fire to other vehicles. This also forced the Italian firefighters to retreat, although they were able to rescue 12 people from the Italian side of the tunnel. There was a lot of failures that happened along this rescue efforts as well. A significant communication breakdown occurred because the French emergency services didn't operate on the same frequency as those inside the tunnel, which crippled the response. Furthermore, the tunnel's safety features proved inadequate. Firefighters quickly realized that their emergency fire cubicles, which were small rooms with fire-sealed doors, offered little protection from the smoke, which forced them to seek alternative escape routes through the ventilation ducts. While some of these had fire doors, which had been upgraded from their previously 2-hour design to their 4-hour design, this was insufficient against the inferno, which was about to be really, really long. But no one knew how long this thing would be. There was also another deeper organizational flaw, which further contributed to the catastrophe. Aulud Baldur, I might have mispronounced that, which was a former president of the French company who operated the tunnel, later asserted that the disaster stemmed from the tunnel being managed by 2 separate companies, one French, one Italian, and they both failed to coordinate their operations effectively. This authority divide caused differing radio frequencies, different operations to happen. No one really knew what was going on because there wasn't a unified command structure. Amidst the chaos, though, there were some heroes that came into effect, and honestly, I'm probably gonna cry because this is so sad. And there was an Italian security guard. His name was Piero Tianazzini, and he ultimately lost his life in the effort, but he tried to go in and save as many people as he could. He was awarded posthumously a award of recognition for his efforts to try to save people because he went into the fire and he kept trying to get people. And he had the opportunity to save himself, but he just wanted to save lives. And the human toll and loss of life was devastating. There was 35 lives lost and 14 non-fatal injuries. The conditions leading to these deaths were horrific. Of the 39 people that were lost, 29 people perished trapped inside their vehicles, while 9 more attempting to escape on foot. All of the deceased were found on the French side of the tunnel. They were reduced to bones and ash as a result of the intense heat. Remember, 1,000 degrees Celsius. This, underscores that the primary cause of death, while not necessarily was the result of the fire, but it was due to them being trapped and having to breathe in that toxic gas like hydrogen cyanide and carbon monoxide, and they just died in this very prolonged heat. Lots of people were lost in the kill zone on the French side. Vehicles on the Italian side were primarily unaffected. All of the 12 survivors of the initial 50 people that were trapped from the Italian side were pretty okay. This demonstrates how just the tunnel wasn't set up properly. Even the emergency responders that went in faced extreme peril. Of the 15 firefighters who became trapped, 14 were left in serious condition, with their commanding officer later succumbing to his injuries in the hospital. These firefighters were eventually rescued 5 hours later by a third fire crew who managed to reach them via the ventilation duct, and it was just an impossible set of circumstances that led to this. After 53 grueling hours, the inferno finally subsided, and the people were just left behind with a scene of devastation. As they walked in, they couldn't even take in the whole scene because it took more than 5 days for the tunnel to cool sufficiently for any people to even go in, for repair work to start, for cleanup to begin. The Mont Blanc Tunnel, which was vital to the whole transport and getting in between countries, remained closed for 3 years following the fire. This prolonged closure had a pretty significant economic repercussion, which disrupted trade and travel across the Alps. But honestly, considering the disaster, this is pretty small in the grand scheme of things. But after those 3 years, it was reopened and the renovations were extensive and costly, and they really put into the safety. The tunnel now features a state-of-the-art computerized detection system that effectively finds these incidents. There's numerous security bays which have been added throughout the tunnel, now equipped with video contact to the control center. This allows direct communication with trapped individuals, providing crucial information and reassurance during emergencies, if there was an emergency. This critical addition is pretty parallel to the escape shaft that they left in there, the ventilation system where that's the only way to get out. And there's a bunch more kind of escape hatches around the whole tunnel itself. They made it bigger enough where there can be double, I don't know how to describe it, double decker fire trucks. So it's bigger and more movable now. And they fixed the air vents, so now breathable air can go in for those seeking refuge. Among the internal modifications, there was also outside. They have a way better security system and communication system, but the lessons learned from this tunnel extended far beyond the tunnel itself. An investigation into this disaster, primarily done by the French Land Transportation Accident Investigation Bureau, said that this was a systemic impact on national safety and infrastructure. The disaster became the subject of public awareness and education through documentaries like Seconds from Disaster and Into the Flames, which explored the circumstances that turned this incident into a catastrophe, of which I watched quite a few of them. But the fire of March 24th, 1999 stands testament to just how little something small can turn into something truly horrific. And that's where we're at in today's case. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye.